A very warm welcome to This World Game Changers podcast, where your host, Paul D. Lowe, embraces many crucial conversations that compassionately contribute towards creating a better life and world. Paul's intention is very simple: to help get people's inspirational insights and motivational messages out into the world so others may benefit.
Hello listeners, and welcome to this World Game Changers podcast episode. A returning guest today, and I'll say a returning guest, I think she's part of the furniture. In fact, I feel like I'm the returning guest, not she, and she being Rebecca Wheele, one of the directors of World Game Changers. Rebecca, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much.
Listeners, what we thought we'd talk about today is the cost of your energy rising? There's so much talk presently around, global energy prices, domestic households really struggling to meet their bills, etc., etc. So what Rebecca and I thought, we'd kind of really bring that back home to the individual. What price are we paying for our own personal energy? Not the gas, not the electric, but the way we're living our life and our energy levels that may be increasing, decreasing, however that plays out, and what's the impact to us as an individual. Rebecca, does that kind of sum up what we said we'd talk about?
Yeah, it does. So, I mean, there's lots to dive in on that, isn't there? Because there's so many different levels to energy. And obviously the energy price is rising, the bills and all these things are kind of an external situation that does affect us in some ways, I guess, depending on our mindset. But as you say, there's also the individual energy of someone, and that is there's different sides there's different ways to look at it, because there's energy in terms of like energy, how much energy do we have, like motivation, I guess, or physical energy, so like exercise, and how much actual energy have we got in that sense. But then there's also the spiritual side, and perhaps they're intertwined, perhaps there's not so separate, perhaps there's just one energy. That's my kind of thoughts so far.
Okay, so interesting bag, listeners. So let's start to what Rebecca's done there, I think, is draw a bit of a line in the sand. So let's expand upon that. In my humble opinion, as she quite rightly alludes to, many different factors can influence our energy. It's all right very well saying, we should be at the top of our game and be the best we can be every day. But to use a well-known saying, life can get in the way, and when we've got, severe external challenges, I'm not earning enough money to pay these extra bills. What am I going to do? Fear starts creeping in. Fear keeps constraining us. It closes us down. And that can be very quick. And that has a knock-on effect, does it not, to the way we live our lives? So naturally, we could be happy, free-going, spirited people. But this injection of what I call a pebble in the shoe can soon cause us pain. And that's an external thing that can soon drag us down. And our energy levels drop. And there's an old saying, isn't there? How you do one thing is how you do most things. Now, that's a separate debate altogether. Hold that thought, Rebecca. Hold that thought. We'll come back to that. How you do one thing is how you do most things. I'm not so sure as I agree with that, but anyway, that's just hold that thought. So let's assume, what if, because we like to play what if, let's be creative, let's go down a few rabbit holes. What if that wasn't actually true? And every situation in every moment just stands on its own, because it is what it is. rather than story that we tell ourselves and being constrained by fear. I've got this massive gas bill, electric bill. Oh, how am I going to cope? Because it's double this week's wages or whatever the situation be. Is that a good context to start off on, Rebecca, do you think?
Yeah, it is, because it brings into always looking at what is actually going off underneath the surface to create this reality. That actually brings into it something that I had a bit of a quick research just on Albert Einstein, because I knew he had said a quote about energy. And so there's a couple that I feel are really poignant. One of them says, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another, which I thought was, we can dive into that. Very interesting. And the other one was, everything is energy. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but to get that reality. So what this, is to me is what's going off underneath the surface to create that reality. And I mean, obviously there are circumstances that are out of our control, and there are we're born into a life, and we kind of there's a degree of things that we already have and opportunities that we have, but at the same time, our mindset and our way of being, like the frequency that we're tuned into, the story that we're telling ourselves, then creates that reality. So yeah, I thought that was really kind of poignant, those quotes about energy.
I am an advocate of Einstein, I must admit.
Yeah.
He's got some, not so much his scientific principles, but those as well. But that actually, what he spoke about there, might actually be deemed of a more spiritual origin. But actually, it's very scientific as well. And for me, I mean, I love Einstein's most of his work, vast majority, and I certainly, on a personal level, resonate with both those statements. So let's kind of break those down, Rebecca. Let's have a look at the first one again. Recite that back to us, if you will.
Sure. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another.
Okay. So I asked the question, listeners, on that excellent line in the sand of energy cannot be created. It just is. Wow, doesn't that speak to the spirituality of who we are? And even when we pass from this thing called a body, human life, that is very transient, is very, and I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, very superficial. But we get so entrapped in this body and this mind. This is me, this is my identity. But we lose that. We lose that because one day we die. Or do we? We certainly die in the physical sense, and we stop being that, that man, that woman, that whatever, we identify ourselves with. There is no right, there is no wrong on that. But whatever that physical shape and form is, it ceases. So that energy then transfers elsewhere in a physical sense. But what if it also transfers in a more soulful sense?
Yeah.
And when we're into probably the Buddhism of reincarnation here. But irrespective, I mean, this podcast is not kind of about that debate and that philosophy and judging one against another. But it is about that. Is reincarnation of energy a wrong phrase to use? Because we all identify with the physical here and now. But isn't it true that there are things that are happening in the world that are far, far deeper, far more profound than we can even remotely understand? And that was one of the reasons I personally love the work of Einstein, because he was groundbreaking. He prodded and poked where others didn't go.
Yeah.
And so when we leave this body, this thing that we kind of put so much store by, in our human life, I can't be naked is a classic one. I can't show my body. Well, okay, that's a personal thought. That's a personal take upon things, but then realizing that actually there's something far, far deeper and far more intimate than a physical form. And when that physical form stops, brackets dies, it takes another form. Any thoughts about that mixed bag there, Rebecca?
Yeah. Well, I feel that we all can connect with in many different ways, and for everyone it's different, but we can all connect with that sense of energy about ourselves, that sense of our soul, our spirit. And I feel that from my own personal belief, and what I really resonate with is that the soul is kind of eternal, and that we are in this lifetime in this physical form, and then we move on. And I think that part of the mystery of that, and part of the not knowing, because I feel that there's always this need in this world at this time, and in history, to have everything proven and have to have everything scientifically making sense. And I feel that there's a level of just faith and trust that goes with the idea, if it can even call it an idea. But you see that so many people connect with that, so many people resonate with that and have experiences of that as well. And so I don't feel like it's, for me, a question of truth, like if it's a belief, so it's something I believe, or it kind of feels just like a knowing or a truth. But it I think that the world, and also me as a person that has an ego, struggles with that, because it's like, well, where is the scientific, we want to look for the facts because we feel safe in the facts. But actually, I think that the beauty of life is the mystery. And if we knew it all, if we could just, if we knew it all for a fact, where's the beauty? Where's the mystery? Where's the, so I think that's actually part of what is supposed to happen. Is
But
that kind of...
What is the truth? What is the so-called fact? A fact is something that's been, inverted commas, proven by somebody else. When you look at law, the rule of law, it's based on precedent. This is what's happened. And so if you go to court, and 9 times out of 10, it's based on precedent. What has actually happened? It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it wrong.
Yeah.
And I think the ultimate truth lies in the intangible. So science is one part. Science helps us massively, beyond massively, to evolve in a day-to-day human existence.
Absolutely. It's incredible.
However, it's only one side of the coin. In fact, in my world, is it even one side of the coin? And by the way, listeners, I come from a very scientific stroke engineering stroke masculine background. And certainly because of my own life experiences, I absolutely needed that certainty of proof. What are the rules? Even the roles I took in life, through my uncertainty, were those of control, consultancy roles where I could impose my experience, my thoughts, that I was right. And actually then reach a stage to say, well, that might be your experience, Paul, which may or may not resonate with some people, but there's no ultimate truth, because for me, the ultimate truth is found in consciousness, which is open, is infinite, and we're out there and connected anatomically, irrespective of whether we're a plant, we're a rock, we're a, fauna, flora, human, it doesn't matter. And that for me is part of the truth, my truth. Will it resonate with you? Will it resonate with your next door neighbour? I don't know. That's none of my business.
Yeah, that's such an important point, because we are all individual, we're unique, and we all have our own truth. And just speaking into that and expressing that is contributing to that frequency of truth, of how we shine our light and how we show up. And so yeah, it's a very important point. that, you know, just, I guess, tapping into what's true for us, because there's so many influences, isn't there? And we've talked about conditioning growing up and the ideas of what life is or what it should be or what we're, you know, what we're supposed to do and what we, all these preconceived notions. And so it can be, I think, on the journey, confusing at times. What is, you know, what is my truth and what is, but I think that's where the stillness and the meditation and the going inward is so powerful in finding that. And in context of energy, something that I feel is really important for me is that energy exists for me in the feeling realm. You can't see energy. You I mean, maybe you can if you, it depends on what we're talking about, I guess. Steam or, you know, water in a sense is energy when it's flowing. So there's ways, but I guess you can connect with it in the more in the feeling, rather than the kind of seeing of it.
Yeah. And knowing that feeling is actually attached to thought,
and
thought, you know, is attached to beliefs. So this is all part of our mental construct. Certainly from my own perspective, and of course I have thoughts and of course I have feelings and subject to emotions, you know, as a human being. The big question is, in this kind of relative, and I'll keep using this term, listeners, this relatively superficial existence of humanity, because it does run far, far, far deeper, in my world anyway. And some people will resonate with that and agree with it and some won't. And that's fine either way. To quote the late, great Jim Rohn, some will, some won't, so what?
Yeah.
And, you know, as part of that, I think it's kind of observing that transient and accepting that. And yes, at times, you know, we do get caught. I certainly get caught, you know, that vulnerability of humanity, like everyone else. I don't care how aware we think we are, or what's the modern day term, enlightened we think we are. To quote Chopra, we're spiritual beings having human challenges, and we will get caught. We will get caught and, you know, subjected to the fears that can trap us, you know, and the solution is to get out of that as quickly as we can. So energy is very transient, but we do within our consciousness have an ability to change that. The fact that we're trapped and conditioned because we're, you know, well, I can remember when I feel angry, this is what I always do. And there's that subconscious conditioning of, okay, here we go again. I've been triggered, right, and this is what plays out. And this is what plays out. And this is what plays out. Deja vu, deja vu, deja vu, until we break the pattern. Let's draw this to a close, Rebecca, if we can. And I want you to hold that second part of Einstein's quote there. I want us to do another thread on that on a separate episode. But I want to close this one out, if I can, or if we can, sorry. Leave the listeners with a kind of question to ask, or, you know, let's bring this to some kind of conclusion or summary that serves our listeners. What would that be for you?
I would invite the listeners to tap into today. What energy are they connecting with, and what energy are they showing up with in the world, in everything that they do?
Okay, yeah, I can relate to that massively. And I think my take upon it, listeners, is to leave you with this, that obviously Rebecca and I have had this dance, as we call it, between ourselves, this exchange of energy, of ideas, of thoughts, of emotions. Although this, in terms of emotions, I've got to say, this has been fairly level compared to our usual normal dance, where we go down a trillion rabbit holes. This has been fairly level, and that's fine. That's fine. So, but for me, it'll be listening to this particular episode. what's it prodded and poked within you, listeners? Has it made you thoughtful? Has it made you happy? Has it made you angry, thinking, what are these two on about? I don't agree with that. Or whatever it is, who knows?
Yeah.
But the point is, with this dance, imagine two people on a dance floor and people observing, thinking they're good dancers, or not, as the case may be. What response has it evoked in you? Because that will tell you, in some respects, where your own energy's at. Let's leave it there on this particular episode, Rebecca, and we'll probe Einstein's other great quote in a following episode.
Sounds good. Look forward to it.
So, listeners, there we have it. Let's raise the tone. Let's raise the energy. Because that was quite a solemn one. Certainly, as I've said, by Rebecca and I, we're normally dancing, we're normally shouting, we're normally singing, we're normally going down rabbit holes. I don't know, maybe that will appear again. But for the time being, I sign off, the way I always do, by saying, remember, the world is changing. How will you respond?
Thanks very much for listening to this World Game Changers podcast episode. Hopefully you found it interesting and helpful. Drop a line to Paul at worldgamechangers.org with any thoughts or questions you may have, and he'll be more than happy to respond. Remember, the world's changing. How will you respond?